Wendell Berry has said that the world cannot be discovered by a journey of miles, no matter how long, but only by a spiritual journey, a journey of 1 inch, very arduous and humbling and joyful, by which we arrive at the ground at our own feet and learn to be at home. Let us take a spiritual journey together this year, a pilgrimage of learning to be at home. Together we will leave the safety and comfort of the familiar and test our mettle in an arduous and humbling and joyful journey. It will be difficult at times, but we'll face the unfamiliar together. There will be times of grieving to release what we've lost, and times of celebration to renew our resolve. Through it all, we will learn together to widen our horizons, deepen our hearts, and release our limitations so that we might know each other and ourselves anew.
We ring this chime to come together as one and to affirm the peace that we hope to find in the world. Good morning and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Prescott, Arizona. I'm Kelsey Wilkes, your worship associate today. We extend a warm welcome to all, and we're glad you're able to join us. We hope that you are in good health. We want to stay connected, so please join us for breakout rooms after the service. This will give us time to chat with congregants in small groups. If you are joining us for the first time, please check out our website for more information, prescottuu.org. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice in the world, and serves the world we live in. We extend our thanks to all who have contributed to the presentation of our service today. Heather Knowles for technical direction, Mary Lou Prince for musical direction, the Granite Peak worship team, and our guest speaker, the Reverend Robin Landerman Zucker. Reverend Robin is an ordained UU minister, professional counselor, coach, and educator. She was ordained in 2000 and is now in final fellowship with the Unitarian Universalist Association. Reverend Robin has served in both congregational and community settings, and she is currently serving as the interim minister at the Beacon UU congregation in Flagstaff, Arizona. We are happy to have her today, and Reverend Patty is speaking at Beacon today. We have several announcements. Although we are physically apart, we are still in community, and we continue with some of our meetings and activities via the internet. Please continue to check the weekly peak, our website, and Reverend Patty's video announcements, and our regularly scheduled Zoom meetings, Together Wednesday Forum, Wednesday afternoon storytelling, and Friday lunch with the minister. If you want to see this service again or share it with others, follow our link to the YouTube channel found in the order of service or in the Granite Peak weekly newsletter. You can find connection information and other announcements in our order of service. And I have these announcements to share. Children's Faith Development Fifth Dimension program will be at 11:30 today via Zoom. Contact Deb Bostrom. And please come to Granite Peak today to bring your Day of the Dead photos to Karen Hagberg. And you can visit the children's garden. It's laden with tomatoes. Please come and pick them before our first frost on Monday night, which will probably end their season. And much thanks to Karen, the Day of the Dead altar is absolutely stunning, as you can see. Oh, the places we'll go. There's a link to the form on the order of service for our service auction. This is not just our normal service auction. This is our fundraiser for the year. It is critical that we raise sufficient funds to keep the building paid for, the lights on, and our staff employed. The decisions the board makes for 2021 will depend on the success of the service auction. Please donate and dig as deep as you can and bid, bid, bid. Invite your friends and family to attend virtually via Zoom. Granite Peak is known far and wide for its social justice work and its commitment to this community. So we need the community to join us and help support our programs. We now begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. These words are from the Reverend Judith Campbell. Drops of water fill pond, drops of mercy fill a heart, drops of compassion change a life, and a changed life will help make the world a better place. One drop, one smile, one hug, one day, one blessing at a time. May it be so. We light this chalice, a symbol of our heritage and gratitude for this beloved community. Let us be the beacon in the light of light in the dark.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Robin Landerman Zucker from the Beacon UU congregation in Flagstaff, and I am so happy to be with you at Granite Peak this morning. My opening words today are by my colleague Victoria Safford. It's a reading called Whose Are You? And it fits wonderfully as a prelude to my sermon today called Your Loyalties Are Your Life. And it goes like this. Who carries you in their heart, thinks of you whether you think of them or not. Whose are you? Who are your people, the ones who make a force field you can almost touch? Whose are you? Who is within your circle of concern? Whose are you? To whom are you responsible, accountable? Whose care is yours to provide? Whose are you? When you look in the mirror in the morning, whose bones do you see? Whose blood runs in your veins? Who are those people stretching back in time beyond memory? Where did you come from? Whose are you? When you walk out of your room, out of your house, into the sunlight of the day, to whom in this wide world do you belong? Where is your allegiance? By whom are you called? Whose are you? At the end of the day, through the longest night, in the valley of the shadow of death, who holds your going out and your coming in, your waking and your sleeping? Who, what holds you in the hollow of its hand? Whose are you?
And now join in as we sing number 354, We Laugh, We Cry.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone.
please now join me as we say our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, thus do we covenant together. Our tradition of joys and concerns may be different now, but we still continue to struggle with sorrows and to find joys to celebrate. Let us remember those who are suffering with pain, the aftermath of COVID, the loss of the nearness of loved ones, and let us celebrate our resilience, our moving forward day to day, our community. Let us be silent for a moment as we think of our joys and concerns. For all the concerns and joys not spoken aloud today, may your spirit embrace you and our love fill your heart. Blessed be. Please sing these words of comfort. Walking with you, walking with you is my prayer.
Our reading today is called Tolstoy and Miss Daisy. It's by Frank Bruni, and it was from the New York Times, April 19th, 2014. And it goes like this. If you were on I-85 near Atlanta on Wednesday morning or I-95 near Baltimore on Thursday afternoon, there's a chance that you spotted them. You'd remember, especially if she was driving when they lumbered by. It's not often that you see an 18-year-old girl behind the wheel of a gold-colored Cadillac, so enormous, so archaic. And it's not usual that a 79-year-old man is sitting beside her, her lone companion on the long road. What an odd-looking couple they must have been, but what a sweet affirmation. They were proof, these two, that a family can pass its painstakingly nurtured closeness down through the generations, and that there comes a moment when the values impressed on the youngest members, the values imposed on them really, become the values they actually elect, the ones they choose. The 79-year-old is my father, says Frank Bruni. All 5'2" of him. Every year around this time, just before Easter, he migrates north from Georgia, where he spends the cold months, to New York for the warm ones. He drives, and that makes my 3 siblings and me increasingly nervous because he doesn't have the energy he once did, and because we're worrywarts, and because we're determined to hold on to him for as long as we can. We were especially concerned this year when his wife, whom he met and married many years ago after our mother died, couldn't join him on the ride. He was going to be piloting this grand and gleaming relic all alone. Over email and by phone, my brothers, my sister, and I, we huddled and we strategized. Could one of us cancel a few commitments and take a few days off and figure out some way to tag along with him? Could we persuade him to let that happen? My niece, Leslie, the eldest of his 9 grandchildren, caught wind of this conversation and piped up. She'd do it, she said. She'd go. She was in the final weeks of high school and, like most graduating seniors, just kind of biding her time. She had no crucial exams to study for, no more standardized tests to take, and there wasn't a chance in hell that Grandpa was going to turn her down. So she hopped on a plane from Los Angeles, where my brother Harry and his family live, to Atlanta, where the Cadillac sat idling. She climbed in and buckled up. I called to check on her and Dad during the first leg of their 2-day, 16-hour trip. He answered. He had already ceded the driver's seat to Leslie, already grown accustomed to being chauffeured. "You're a veritable Miss Daisy," I told him, and he passed the observation along to Leslie, and she had no idea what we meant. He said to me, "My firstborn granddaughter comes all this way to drive me. Can you believe it?" "Well, I can believe it," says Frank Bruni, because he set this up to happen. Leslie is the return on an investment he made across the decades with so much of his time and so much of his heart. He, my mother, my own grandparents, my aunts and uncles wanted the compact that they'd established, the covenant that they'd built to endure. Tolstoy wasn't on the mark. Not all happy families are alike, but all happy families, or more accurately, all close ones, have this in common. Their bond is not forged by accident, but by intent. They make a decision, and their actions follow their resolve. Grandpa took Leslie to the Waffle House on the first day of their drive, and then again on the second. They share, along with their genes, an affinity for breakfast foods and carbohydrates. They don't share musical tastes for most of the trip. They left the radio off and just talked, treating the highway as a memory lane. At one point, he realized that he had a collection of the greatest hits by the Platters with him, and he put in the CD, telling Leslie, "This was the soundtrack of my romance with your grandmother." They pulled into his driveway in the suburbs of New York City early Thursday evening in time to freshen up and head out to a movie together. Afterwards, I got Leslie on the phone and asked her how it went. She was still dumbstruck by the heft of Grandpa's car. "It's like a boat," she said. "It took me a while to realize that if I wanted to stop, I had to start braking really, really early in advance." In the background, Grandpa chimed in, "She's a terrific little driver." I asked her about her plans for the next day and whether she'd have dinner with me in Manhattan and stay over at my place. I was braced for rejection or a grudging acceptance. An 18-year-old has better ways to spend her Friday night, and surely she had overdosed on family at this point. I underestimated her. I underestimated all of us. "I'm seeing a friend in the city," she told me, "but I'll cut it off in time to meet you at the restaurant and spend the night with you," she told me, sounding genuinely eager. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Totally," she said. "This is more important."
That was lovely. I enjoyed every minute of that. So now it is time for our offertory. As we listen to this musical interlude, take a moment to embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. During the month of November, our recipient is Keep Prescott Together. Please read about them and their important work in the order of service and the newsletter. To give during this distance time, please go to prescottuu.org. On the bottom left-hand side, click the word Donate to contribute. The link is also available in the chat on this Zoom. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
That was lovely. And now we will hear our message from Reverend Robin. The loyalties are your life.
My sermon today is entitled, Your Loyalties Are Your Life. Back in May of 2019, an opinion piece in the New York Times caught my eye. It was by one of my favorite journalists, David Brooks, with the headline, Your Loyalties Are Your Life. What a great sermon title, I mused, shameless as ever. Well, it turned out to be not just a great sermon title, but a great sermon topic, too. In his piece, Brooks shines a light on the central idea of a philosopher named Josiah Royce. He lived and worked and was a friendly colleague to William James at Harvard around 1900. As Brooks explains in his article, James and Royce admired and learned from each other, but their philosophies were different. James was pragmatic and tough-minded, looking for empirical truth, but Royce was more idealistic and tender-minded, more spiritual and abstract. They differed on the individual's role in society. James's emphasis was on tolerance. We live in a pluralistic society, and we each know only a fragment of the truth. People should give one another enough social space to be themselves. But for Royce, the good life meant tightly binding yourself to others, giving yourself away with others for the sake of a noble cause. Tolerance was not enough. James's influence is now enormous, deservedly so, and Royce is almost entirely forgotten. And yet, argues David Brooks, Royce is the philosopher we actually need today. In an age of division, fragmentation, and isolation, hamstrung by a pandemic during a traumatizing election cycle, Royce is the philosopher we don't know we have. He's the philosopher of binding and connection. Why does Brooks believe this? Because Royce's central guiding concept is loyalty to loyalty. Zing. This idea set off so many bells and intrigued me, and here we are. If your loyalties are your life, whom or what do you value, and how will you cherish them? This past summer, my beloved daughter turned 30 and got married, and my cherished granddaughter is now a smiley 5-month-old. So the following quote from the scholar Cornel West really rang particularly true for me. He said, "We have to recognize that there cannot be relationships until there is commitment, and unless there is loyalty, unless there is love, patience, and persistence." As I see it, and building on West's wise assertion, there are 4 spheres of loyalty: to self, to intimate relationships, to communities such as Granite Peak, and to country and a civil society. A mature, grounded loyalty to loyalty begins with yourself, becoming self-actualized as a whole person of many parts through deep and intentional reflection and self-interrogation. This is not always easy in a society that scrutinizes our flaws and encourages us to do the same. Self-loathing in our world is rampant, and self-loyalty is abandoned. Yet we can grow in commitment to ourselves without becoming self-absorbed, following the slow process described by May Sarton in her poem, "Now I Become Myself." Now I become myself, she tells us. It's taken time, many years and places. I have dissolved and shaken, worn other people's faces, run madly as if time were there, terribly old, crying a warning. Hurry, you will be dead before what? Before you reach the morning, or the end of this poem is clear, or love, safe in a walled city. Now, to stand still, to be here, feel our own weight and destiny. Can you hear the kind of fearless intimacy with self in those lines? The intentionality of connections made slowly, the loyalty to becoming. Please don't overlook the word slowly here, because slow growth creates strong roots, real intimacy from self to others. And then how do we build on our self-discovery? We weave real connections, create real nodes, build real houses, in the words of Marge Piercy. Some of these loyal connections are bred in the bone, but they are not guaranteed. The many broken and estranged families and marriages in this world can attest to that. And yet, even these blood connections are made slowly, even if they do have a head start, a leg up to loyalty. In Frank Bruni's Gem from April of 2014, Tolstoy and Miss Daisy, which I read earlier, we gaze through the window of a vintage Cadillac at just such a poignant and moving familial loyalty unfolding. We come into that scene when a 79-year-old patriarch remarks, "My firstborn granddaughter, Leslie, she comes all this way to drive me. Can you believe it?" "I can," replies Bruni, "because her father, my brother, set this up to happen. Leslie is the return on an investment that he made across many decades with so much of his time and so much of his heart. He, my mother, my own grandparents and my aunts and uncles wanted the compact they'd established, the covenant they'd built to endure." Tolstoy wasn't on the mark, Bruni continues. "Not all happy families are alike, but all happy families, or more accurately, all close ones, have this in common. Their bond is forged not by accident, but by intent. They make a decision, and their actions follow their resolve. In other words, they are loyal to loyalty, come hell or high water, or pandemics, or flat tires." So what is the next tier of loyalty? From here, the family moves out into the world, past intimates, and forged on into beloved communities, the ones we value, the ones like Granite Peak. My colleague Victoria Safford really captures this in her reflection called, "Why Do You Come, John?" Now, I'd argue that the character John in that reflection exemplifies the notion of loyalty to loyalty within his congregation. Rev Victoria asks him, "Why do you come, John, in all kinds of weather, when you're well and when you're not, when you like the guest speaker and when you know you won't? Why do you come every Sunday?" And his answer was straightforward, just like the man himself. "I come," he said, "because somebody might miss me if I didn't." John also considers it a duty and a privilege to welcome newcomers, adapt to change and growth, and chat with people at coffee hour. We can learn from him even as we meet in non-optimal ways like Zoom and live streams and YouTube during this pandemic that keeps us physically apart. John's presence in our service today is not meant to evoke guilt. I just think he's a wonderful example of loyalty, a word and a concept that has become all the more murky in our polarized and toxically individualistic society. David Brooks offers us more of Royce's perspective on this very danger. He tells us that Royce argued that meaningful lives are marked above all by loyalty. Out on the frontier, he had seen the chaos and anarchy that ensues when it's every man for himself, when society is just a bunch of individuals searching for gain. He concluded that people make themselves miserable when they pursue nothing more than their fleeting, capricious, and insatiable desires. So for him, for Royce, the good human life meant loyalty, the willing and practical and thoroughgoing devotion of a person to a cause or to something greater than themselves. A person doesn't have to invent a cause or find it deep within themselves. You are born into a world of causes, which existed before you were born and will be there after you die. You just have to become gripped by one, to give yourself away to it, realizing that the cause is more important than your individual pleasure or even your individual pain. Wow. If only. Do these noble ideas about loyalty appear present in our country right now on October 25th, 2020? In our government, especially at the top. Consider what we've heard over and over about the president's idea of loyalty. "I need loyalty. I expect loyalty," he demanded of James Comey, the FBI director, and just about everyone else who has worked with him or for him. This definition of loyalty is simple, cult-like, and blunt. Support me in what I do and say, or else. It's a form of allegiance, not unlike taking the knee in Game of Thrones, not an allegiance to cause or country or community, but to him, to Trumpism. Trump developed this self-interested transactional sense of loyalty as a child and then as a developer, cutting his teeth under the tutelage of two brutal mob-like operators, his shifty father, Fred, and his despicable advisor, Roy Cohn. One former White House employee calls it allegiance plus thuggery. And where has this led us? To a society riven between rainbow LGBTQ flags and MAGA hats, masks and anti-vaxxers. We are sick at our soul, and loyalty is becoming no more than a Twitter hashtag to belittle or lionize others. This form of loyalty, this is an important point, is not patriotic. Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the anthem, in my view, is patriotic. BLM marches are patriotic. Tammy Duckworth is patriotic. These are fine examples of loyalty to a cause and to community, regardless of the cost, which has been mighty high indeed for many people. And this morning, I don't stand here to persuade you how to vote. That is completely a private matter and not up to me, nor something I should persuade. Rather, I implore each of you to consider our collective responsibility as Americans and as religious progressives, to serve as guardians of our inalienable rights by embodying and promoting an authentic patriotism which includes respectful and reasoned dissent and well-placed loyalties. I guess, the word patriotism, it drums up so many images. And of course, it means, among other things, love of your country, pride in your country, supporting our men and women and trans individuals in uniform. I couldn't agree more with that. That's the basis. However, I would add that a mature, evolved patriotism includes a willingness to love America enough to hold our leaders and our citizenry accountable for their stewardship of our collective national interests. I have no objection to an uptick in national pride, as long as we examine the possibility that behind this trend may lurk something vitally different and quite toxic, which is easily mistaken for patriotism, namely the nationalism of America First. Writing in The Nation, Joseph Sobran observes that while patriotism is a form of affection, which is typically peaceful until forced to fight, nationalism is grounded in resentment and rivalry and tends to be militant in nature and belligerent in style. The nationalist is rigid and has to prove that his country is always right. He reduces his country to an idea, a perfect abstraction, rather than a mere homeland. The patriot can laugh at his country the way members of a family or congregation can lovingly laugh at each other's human foibles. Patriotism is relaxed. Nationalism is rigid. The patriot may stand loyally by his or her country or their country, even when they disagree with its policies. But the nationalist insists that their country is always right and defends their country not because it's theirs, but because it's better or best, and all countries should resemble it. The churning pot of emotions and anxieties that have beset us makes it hard to parse how we can unify as Americans to restore and preserve a civil society, one of intentionally crafted, universal ethical principles and loyalties. Before Martin Luther King popularized the phrase, Josiah Royce spoke of beloved community. The loyal man serves, he tells us. That is, he does not merely follow his own impulses. He looks to his cause for guidance. This cause tells him what to do. The cause gives unity and consistency to life. The cause gives fellowship because there are always others willing to serve the cause. Beloved communities are genuine communities, he wrote back in 1900. Beloved communities are genuine communities where individuals remain individuals, but lean together into building a society that transcends their self-interests. In his words, we build a city out of vision. For Royce, the very moral core of an individual is understood in terms of multiple loyalties that this person embraces. And in Royce's spirit, Brooks suggests that when evaluating your life, don't ask, how happy am I? Ask, how loyal am I? And to what? Riding shotgun with Miss Daisy in a vintage Cadillac on a northbound highway, what would be the chosen direction and destination of your loyal heart? A random dinner with friends in the city or a sleepover with your Uncle Frank? As a popular song tells us, we will be known by the company we keep. Your loyalties are your life. Whom or what do you value, and how will you cherish them? Blessed be, blessed we, and amen.
I'm so glad to have gotten a chance to hear Reverend Robin, and after COVID, maybe we can actually go see her in Flagstaff. So now our closing song is You've Got a Friend by Carole King. And now we will hear closing words, constellations of our lives.
Our closing words today are from a reading called Constellation of Our Lives by the Reverend Karen Johnston. Humans make maps of stars, choosing some stars, ignoring others, to project our imagination onto the heavens. Humans make constellations by connecting stars. Humans make meaning by connecting stories, story to narrative to story. Some blaze bright, some are faint. Most are backdrops to the great and mundane human unfolding. Let us imagine the stories of our lives as a starry universe, a constellation of lives above our heads. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen.
And if you will now join us as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. That little guy didn't want to go out. And now it is time to greet our neighbors. I invite you to take as much time as you wish to visit with your friends and your visitors in our chat rooms. Just stay online to be put into a chat room. Our worship time has ended, and now our service begins. Go bravely in our continued support for a just world. Stay healthy and be safe. So may it be.